let's talk about a story that really gets you thinking. It's this incredible historical echo, a link between Britain's massive opium trade in China back in the 19th century and the drug crisis the UK is facing right now. It's a fascinating, complicated tale of power, profit, and what, well, some people might even call karma. So let's dig in and unpack this. So, right off the bat, here's the big, provocative question we're wrestling with today. Is it possible that the descendants of the very people who got rich from the opium trade are now, generations later, dealing with the fallout of a similar crisis in their own backyard? I mean, it's a heavy thought for sure, and that's exactly what we're going to explore. All right, to really get our heads around what's happening now, we have to rewind the clock a long way back. We've got to start with the historical precedent, the absolutely devastating opium trade that Britain essentially forced on China. Okay, so check out this timeline. It shows how things just spiraled out of control. It started in the 18th century with merchants shipping opium, but by the 19th century, it just exploded into a full-blown national catastrophe for China. We're talking about an addiction crisis that some historians think affected tens of millions of people. And get this wasn't some underground operation, it was backed by the state. And it all led to the Opium Wars, where Britain literally used its military to keep the drugs flowing. Okay, so let's hit the fast-forward button. We're jumping from the past right into today's headlines in the UK, where a crisis is unfolding that's, well, it's very different, but it feels eerily familiar. Right now, the UK is in the middle of its own really serious drug crisis. It's being fueled by opioids and incredibly powerful synthetics. Tragically, drug poisoning deaths are at record highs. We're talking thousands of people every single year. Scotland, for instance, has one of the highest drug death rates in all of Europe. You see, the harm isn't being exported anymore. It's a domestic crisis, and it's hitting communities all across the country. So, you've got these two pictures, one from history and one from today. The big question is, how do they connect? Is this just a straightforward reversal of fortunes? Or is there something, deeper and more complicated going on here? So, there's this idea that's key to our discussion. It's called symbolic reversal. It's basically when history kind of does a 180. The nation that was once the source of a particular kind of harm finds itself, generations later, suffering from a problem that looks a lot like the one it created. Wow. I mean, when you put it side by side like this, it is pretty stark, isn't it? Back then, Britain was the source, pushing drugs out into China. And now, the crisis is right there, at home, inside its own borders. It's a powerful, almost shocking comparison. But hold on, it is so easy to just look at this and slap the label karma on it and call it a day, right? But things are rarely that simple. And as this quote here points out, we need to be really careful with that idea. The reality is probably way more complex than just, cosmic justice. So if it's not about proving some kind of cosmic payback, then what's the point of even looking at it this way? Well, the real power here is using the past like a mirror. It's about looking at what happened back then to get a much clearer and, frankly, much smarter view of what's happening now, a view that could maybe even help shape better policies. So, what do we actually see when we look in that mirror? Well, a few big things really jump out. First, that the drug trade, whether it's in the past or the present, causes this deep generational damage that you just can't fix by arresting people. Second, the consequences can be a brutal cycle. This tells us that policies have to be for the long haul, focused on reducing harm and getting to the root causes of addiction, not just quick fixes. And third, thinking about this history isn't just an academic exercise. It's vital for understanding that a crisis this big is a public health issue, not some kind of moral failing. Which brings us to this final, really important question. If we move past the simple idea of karma, what can this echo from history teach us about our responsibilities today? I mean, if a nation's actions can create ripples that travel through centuries and across the globe, sometimes in ways that come right back home, how should that change the way we make decisions now? It's a huge question, and one worth chewing on. Thanks for digging into this with me.